In nearly 4 decades on the bench, I believed I had witnessed every kind of courtroom drama imaginable. I thought I had seen the worst of humanity and occasionally the best of it too. But what unfolded in my courtroom that cold November morning changed something in me forever. Courtroom, it didn't just break my heart. It reminded me why justice matters and why true character reveals itself when people are forced to choose between love and accountability. But before you understand why this case became one of the most unforgettable moments in Providence courtroom history, you need to understand what a police chief's son did to a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran in the middle of a public park. Picture a gray Tuesday morning on November 15th. I was preparing for what looked like a straightforward assault case. The defendant was Derek Cole, 32 years old, son of Providence Police Chief Thomas Cole, a man I had respected professionally for over 15 years. The victim was Robert Martinez, a retired firefighter and decorated Marine veteran who survived multiple tours in Vietnam only to end up beaten and bleeding on a sidewalk by someone young enough to be his grandson. What nobody inside that packed courtroom knew at the time was this. Chief Cole was already there, not in uniform, not wearing his badge, just sitting quietly in the back row in civilian clothes. And the reason he came would leave everyone speechless. According to the reports, 3 days earlier, Robert Martinez had been walking his dog through Roger Williams Park when Derek Cole's BMW tore through the area at dangerous speed. Martinez raised his hand in a simple gesture, asking the driver to slow down. A harmless motion, the kind any grandfather might make. Instead of slowing down, Derek slammed on the brakes, jumped out of the car, and confronted the elderly veteran. 3 witnesses gave matching statements. Derek shoved Martinez so violently that the 70-year-old hit the pavement head first. He suffered a concussion, fractured wrist, and multiple broken ribs, and while bystanders rushed to help the injured veteran, Derek reportedly stood over him and shouted words that made my blood boil the moment I read them. "Do you know who my father is? He's the police chief. Call the cops. I dare you." Then he got back into his car and drove away, leaving an elderly Marine lying injured on the ground. Robert Martinez spent 2 nights in Rhode Island hospital. Security footage of the incident spread across local news within hours, and the city demanded accountability. But nobody expected what would happen once the case reached my courtroom, because this wasn't just about assault anymore. It was about privilege, power, and a father forced to choose between protecting his son or protecting the principles he had spent his life serving. Courtroom. When Derek Cole entered the courtroom that morning, entitlement walked in with him. Everything about him radiated arrogance. The expensive tailored suit, the luxury watch gleaming beneath courtroom lights, the smug expression that suggested he believed this entire process was beneath him. Courtroom. He moved through the room like someone accustomed to escaping consequences. Walking behind him was Marcus Richardson, one of the most expensive defense attorneys in Providence, the kind of lawyer wealthy families hire when they expect problems to disappear quietly. Courtroom. But what caught my attention wasn't the attorney, it was Derek's behavior toward Robert Martinez. The elderly veteran sat quietly in the gallery wearing a Vietnam veteran cap, his injured wrist secured in a cast. Derek walked directly past him without so much as a glance, no remorse. Courtroom. No apology, no acknowledgement whatsoever. That's when I realized this young man hadn't learned a lesson that money could never buy. "Mr. Cole," I began, rising slowly from the bench, something I only do when a case requires more than routine courtroom procedure. Courtroom. "You are charged with assault and battery on an elderly individual, specifically Mr. Robert Martinez, age 70. How do you plead?" Before Derek could answer, his attorney jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty." Courtroom. "We believe there are serious misunderstandings regarding the incident." I raised my hand immediately. "Counselor," I asked your client. "Mr. Cole, do you speak for yourself?" Derek stood casually, adjusted his suit jacket, and looked at me with complete confidence. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Courtroom. Honestly, this whole thing is ridiculous. The word echoed through the courtroom, ridiculous, as though a hospitalized veteran was an inconvenience, as though assaulting a 70-year-old man was beneath concern. I slowly removed my glasses. Courtroom. Anyone familiar with my courtroom knew exactly what that meant. "Ridiculous?" I repeated carefully. "Mr. Cole, I've reviewed the hospital records. I've watched the surveillance footage. I've examined photographs of Mr. Martinez's injuries. Would you like to reconsider calling this ridiculous?" Courtroom. His attorney desperately tried signaling him to stop talking, but Derek's ego was already steering the conversation. "Your Honor, people are overreacting. Some old guy stepped into my path. I barely touched him, and now everyone's acting like I'm some dangerous criminal." Courtroom. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Some old guy? A Marine veteran hospitalized with broken ribs. But Derek wasn't done exposing who he truly was. When I asked if he understood who Robert Martinez was, he shrugged dismissively. "Just some guy who got in my way." At that moment, courtroom, I made a decision I rarely make. I stepped away from behind the bench and walked to the front of the courtroom. The atmosphere changed instantly. Everyone knew something major was about to happen. "Mr. Martinez," I said softly, "would you please stand and introduce yourself to Mr. Cole?" Courtroom. Robert Martinez rose slowly, supporting himself carefully with his good arm. "Your Honor," he began calmly, "my name is Robert Martinez. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1968 until 1971. I completed 2 tours in Vietnam. I received the Purple Heart and Bronze Star." Courtroom. "After returning home, I worked 30 years as a firefighter here in Providence. I've spent my life serving this country and this city. And 3 days ago, this young man assaulted me because I asked him to slow down in a public park. The silence afterward was overwhelming." Courtroom. "This was a man who survived war, a man who spent decades running into burning buildings to save strangers, and Derek Cole had reduced him to some old guy." I turned back toward Derek.
Do you understand what you just heard, Mr. Cole?
"You assaulted a decorated combat veteran." Courtroom. "A retired firefighter, a man who spent his life protecting others. And your response was to dismiss him as someone who inconvenienced you." For the first time, Derek's confidence began slipping, but arrogance still clung to him. "Your Honor, I didn't know he was a veteran." Courtroom. My response came instantly. "That shouldn't matter. Assaulting any innocent person is unacceptable. But the fact that you think his service record determines whether he deserves respect tells me everything I need to know about your character." Then I ordered the courtroom footage played. Courtroom. The screen showed Derek's BMW racing recklessly through the park. It showed Robert Martinez raising a hand to signal him to slow down. Then came the shove, violent, deliberate, cruel. Courtroom. The elderly veteran slammed onto the pavement while Derek stood over him shouting before casually driving away. The video ended in complete silence. I looked directly at Derek. "Still think this is ridiculous." His face had turned pale, but even then, courtroom, privilege wouldn't let him fully surrender responsibility. "Your Honor, I was stressed. I'd gotten bad news earlier that day. I wasn't thinking clearly." I moved closer. "In over 30 years on this bench, I've seen people endure unimaginable pain. They lose jobs, families, homes, children." Courtroom, and somehow they still manage not to attack elderly veterans because they're having a bad day. Then I told him exactly what I believed.
"Mr. Cole, I think you've spent your entire life believing consequences are for other people. I think your father's position has protected you for years."
Courtroom. "And I think you walked into my courtroom today assuming that protection would continue." He opened his mouth to interrupt. I stopped him immediately. "No, you're going to listen." I stared directly into his eyes. "People like you believe power belongs to them by birthright." Courtroom. "You think family names, money, and influence place you above accountability. But in this courtroom, none of that matters. The law matters. Justice matters. Human dignity matters." Then came the moment nobody expected. I turned toward the back of the courtroom. "Chief Cole," I said clearly. Courtroom. "Would you please come forward?" The entire courtroom spun around, and there he was, Providence Police Chief Thomas Cole. He had heard every word, every excuse, every ounce of arrogance. For the first time all morning, Derek's confidence shattered completely. Courtroom. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Chief Cole slowly walked down the aisle, each step heavy with disappointment. No badge, no uniform. Just a father about to make the hardest decision of his life. I nodded respectfully toward him. "Chief Cole, thank you for being here." "Thank you." Courtroom. "Your Honor," he replied quietly. Derek looked panicked now. Even his attorney seemed stunned. I addressed the chief directly. "Your son appears convinced your position will shield him from consequences. I'd like to give you the opportunity to address that belief." Courtroom. The courtroom became perfectly silent. Chief Cole inhaled deeply before speaking. "Your Honor, my son is wrong." His voice remained calm, but emotion sat underneath every word. "I've spent 35 years serving this city. I've arrested violent criminals, corrupt officials, courtroom, and dangerous people. Never once did I believe my badge gave my family permission to ignore the law." "Dad, be quiet, Derek." The authority in his voice silenced his son instantly. Chief Cole looked back toward me. "I saw the footage. I reviewed the reports. I know exactly what my son did." Courtroom. "And I'm standing here today not as police chief, but as a father who failed to teach his son humility, accountability, and respect." His voice cracked slightly. I believed I raised him better than this. For the first time, Derek began crying. Courtroom. "Dad, please." Then Chief Cole said words that nobody in that courtroom would ever forget. "Derek, I love you. Nothing will ever change that. But loving you does not mean protecting you from consequences. Loving you means forcing you to face them so you can become a better man." Courtroom. The courtroom sat frozen. Chief Cole turned back toward me. "Your Honor, whatever sentence you believe is appropriate, you have my full support. My son assaulted an elderly veteran. He showed no remorse. He disgraced himself. This courtroom, and everything I've dedicated my life to protecting. I will not interfere." Whispers spread instantly through the gallery. A police chief publicly refusing to shield his own son. It was extraordinary. Derek could barely breathe through the tears. Chief Cole continued. Courtroom. "You know what I did yesterday, Derek? I visited Mr. Martinez personally. I apologized to him for what you did. And do you know what he told me?" Derek shook his head silently. He said, "Chief, your son doesn't need protection. He needs guidance." Chief Cole's voice softened. Courtroom. "And he was right. I looked toward the chief with enormous respect. Chief Cole, what you've done today took incredible courage. Then I turned back toward Derek. Do you understand what just happened? Your father could have protected you. Instead, he chose integrity. Courtroom, that as honor looks like. Derek wiped tears from his face. Your Honor, I'm sorry, that's the first honest thing you've said all morning. Then came sentencing. Derek Michael Cole, I find you guilty of assault and battery against an elderly individual. Courtroom. The courtroom held its breath. You will serve 90 days in Providence County Correctional Facility. You will complete 200 hours of community service assisting elderly veterans at the VA hospital. You will attend anger management counseling for 1 year. Courtroom. You will write a formal apology to Mr. Martinez and read it aloud in this courtroom before personally apologizing face-to-face. Derek nodded silently, but I wasn't finished. Courtroom. You will also record a public apology explaining your actions and the dangers of believing privilege places you above the law. And once your sentence is complete, you will speak to future police recruits about accountability and respect. Every part of the sentence carried purpose. Courtroom. Punishment alone changes behavior temporarily. Transformation changes lives. Then Chief Cole added something unexpected. Your Honor, Derek will also be moving out of my home immediately. He's 32 years old. It's time he learns responsibility without relying on my name or protection. Courtroom. Derek looked devastated. Dad, it's time, Chief Cole replied quietly. You need to become your own man. Finally, I turned toward Robert Martinez. Mr. Martinez, would you like to say anything? The elderly veteran rose carefully. Your Honor, I don't want revenge. Courtroom. I just want this young man to understand that every person deserves dignity. Titles don't matter. Status doesn't matter. We're all human beings. The grace in those words silenced the room once again. A man who had been assaulted and humiliated was offering wisdom instead of hatred. Courtroom. I looked at Derek one final time. Mr. Cole, the man you attacked is showing you more mercy than you showed him. I suggest you spend your sentence thinking deeply about that. Then I brought down the gavel. Court is adjourned. As officers approached to take Derek into custody, courtroom. Chief, for a moment, they simply stood facing each other. Then the chief pulled his son into a tight embrace. I love you, he whispered. And because I love you, I'm letting you face this. Derek broke down completely. I'm sorry, Dad, I know. Now prove it. Courtroom. The officers led him away while Chief Cole stood silently watching his son disappear behind courtroom doors, tears running down his face. That's what real love looks like. Not shielding people from consequences, standing beside them while they face them. Courtroom. I walked toward Chief Cole and shook his hand. You did the right thing, I told him quietly. He nodded slowly. Doesn't make it hurt less. No, I said, but it makes it meaningful. 6 months later, Derek Cole walked out of Providence County Correctional Facility a different man. Courtroom. The arrogance was gone, the entitlement was gone. His volunteer work with veterans continued long after his sentence ended. He personally apologized to Robert Martinez, and over time the two developed an unlikely friendship built on honesty, accountability, and growth. Courtroom. The man Derek once assaulted eventually became the mentor who helped teach him what true strength really means